Welcome, Army fans. This is Joe Iacono with GoBlackKnights.com, along with former Army linebacker and current major in the United States Army and professor at West Point, I believe, Andrew Rodriguez. Andrew, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Joe. Thank you for having me on today.
Awesome. And, you had a great career at West Point, both on the football field and in the classroom. Kind of stellar all around, great cadet athlete in all aspects. Campbell Award winner, which is a huge deal and a huge honor. Tell the fans a little bit about what you've been doing since graduation and what you're doing up at West Point now.
Yeah, so I think I like to think about it as coming full circle, but left West Point back in 2012, commissioned as an infantry officer, and have had some phenomenal opportunities to go out in the Army and serve different places. So my first assignment was over with the 173rd Airborne Brigade in Vicenza, Italy. So I got to be a platoon leader there, and then went and tried out and was selected to serve in the 1st Ranger Battalion, where I served with a bunch of my Army football teammates, which was awesome. And then after some additional officer training, I went out to Fort Carson, Colorado, and had the chance and opportunity to be a striker company commander out there, which was also a phenomenal experience. After I did those things and worked with all the great people I got a chance to work with, I had the opportunity to go to graduate school and then come back here to West Point to serve as an instructor. So my family and I, we leapt at that opportunity, and in following school, taught some mechanical engineering for a while up here, which was an awesome time, both to be in the classroom working with cadets who are, I'd say keep me young. We'll put it like that. And then as well to get back around the Army football program and see some of the great things that have been happening there under Coach Monken's leadership.
Very cool. And I understand, our publisher, GBK, Charles Grievous, had the opportunity to go up to West Point recently, watch the scrimmage, I think, watch the West Point versus Cal rugby match, which was a big win for the West Point rugby team over Cal. They've been a kind of arch nemesis for a while for Army rugby. So that was a huge win. And he was up there for Stephen Dwyer's funeral. Stephen Dwyer, American hero, pilot, and just did an amazing service to his country there. And he was up there with his son, Chris, and everything. And he was telling me about getting to spend a lot of time with your family, who has a ton of ties to the academy. He said your mom could probably be a stand-up comedian, which is great. With all the like serious military folks in the family, I think it's really cool to have somebody else to kind of keep the perspective and keep you in check from taking yourself too seriously like that. So why don't you tell the viewers a little bit about your family? Obviously, your dad was a West Point grad, general in the Army. Kind of go through some of your family's history, your ties to the Army and West Point there.
Yeah, absolutely. And my mom does keep me grounded. She's been, she was grounded me as a young kid for years, and then she's been keeping me grounded since I have come into the Army and become an adult as well. So she's sort of the rock of our family. Yeah, my dad also had the opportunity to play Army football. He was on the teams back in the early 70s that was there winning the CIC trophy and everything like that as that started to become a thing. And then he served in the Army longer than I can imagine, frankly, and has since retired and is doing great. And then I'm the youngest of 4, so my oldest sister came to West Point as well. She used to jump into the football games on occasion as part of the parachute team. And then I have another sister who taught for a long time in early childhood education. Now she's doing some other things, and then a brother as well who played football at Gettysburg College and was a few years older than me and really taught me most of what I know about the game of football. So
very cool.
And just lucky to have been born into the family and the group of people that I got the chance to grow up around.
Awesome. And, I don't know, what opportunities you had coming out of high school with that kind of family legacy, if you were primarily only looking at West Point, but talk a little bit about what was special about playing football at West Point And what was the most memorable game of your college career?
Yeah, I think when I came here, one, I'd say the people I met even on my recruiting visit are my best friends to this day. So there's something very special about the bonds you make here as an Army football player. And I think I could see that when I met the players who were here at the time when I came and was figuring out where I was going to go to school. I was down to a number of different schools, and I think that's what swayed it for me. And really the culture of the program. So you continue to see it now, but what being an Army football player means and who we are as people and as a collective group, what we refer to as the brotherhood, I think is extremely special. And it changes your life in ways that you're not going to be able to anticipate it and which are going to be largely and extremely positive. Um, Second part of your question, I think, had to do with, can you remind me one more time, Joe?
Yeah, what would out of your whole playing career at West Point, what was your probably most memorable game?
Yeah. So many games that I replay all the time when I think about all the great plays that a bunch of my teammates had that we did together. I think about the 4-sack game that Josh McNary had against Temple at Lincoln Financial Field. A home game against Vanderbilt here where we beat them in overtime on a field goal kick. Uh, those are a couple examples I can think of, but it's just when Army football starts playing Army football and rolling, and shows up and shocks people and beats people that nobody would give us a chance against. I think that definitely stands out for me.
Yeah, so you had the opportunity, if I'm not mistaken, to be on the team that won the Armed Forces Bowl and beat SMU, was it, in the Armed Forces
Yeah,
Bowl that
that's right.
year?
SMU.
And
Yep.
you talked about Josh McNary, Steven Anderson was a part of that defense. I believe Mike Gann. That defense was loaded. It was really one of the best defenses I remember in Army history. That 196. Some of the recent defenses obviously have been amazing as well. Talk a little bit to what it was like to be around such great, really, even for West Point, such amazing athletes on defense, and how you guys kind of came together as a unit. You had, I think, for a while you were setting turnover records at the academy. Obviously, Josh McNary was an NFL caliber player who played with the Colts for a while. Just talk a little bit about that unit and what that was like.
Yeah, I think we as a unit, I feel as though we believed that we had the capabilities across the board to do some dangerous things, and we were pretty hungry to do them. So uh, I think back to that time, first couple years after. So my sophomore and junior season are really standing out. Is when it was junior year was when we had went to Armed Forces Bowl, and you could look across the lineup of defensive line like Mike Anchorus in the middle. We had Vic Ugeni, some really talented D tackles, and then some linebackers who could really fly, as well as cornerbacks who could, like we do with our corners now, play out on an island. And when you have all of that in place, it opens up the opportunities for the defensive coordinator and the play callers and the scheme makers to do some pretty creative things. And I think we were excited by a lot of the packages that we would put in. And you could tell in many cases, based on how well we were coached on people's trends and scheme, like we knew before the snap was going to happen that we were all going to be put in the right position to make a good play, which I think is a testament to the coaches too. So I think it's a factor of the great coaching combined with our belief and confidence in how we played together, and then just an aggression and how we believed in sort of how fast we were all going to move around the field until we started making the opponent's lives a little bit crazy was the recipe for our success, I'd say.
Yeah, and I remember, the staff that was there when you were there, Coach Ellerson, and what was the name of your defensive coordinator at the time?
Coach Sadat, Payam Sadat.
Yeah, so I can't remember whether you were still there or not, but Army hosted Stanford one, and it was one of Harbaugh's really good Stanford teams, and they shut them. Army lost the game, but the defense shut Harbaugh's offense down, which was really impressive. Because that was when I think he had Andrew Luck, and it was just a loaded offense, and the Army defense was able to just pretty much stop them cold, which was impressive.
Yeah, we
So
definitely always felt like we didn't care who was coming out on the field against us. We had a pretty good shot based on our level of prep and what we were capable of doing.
that's cool. And Andrew, you had, like I said, Campbell Award winner, not only a great career in the football field, obviously the ability to prioritize and manage your bandwidth and still be a great student with I think a 4.14 GPA if my stats are right, which is just crazy to me. Along with being a starting linebacker on the football team, plus all your other duties in the Corps of Cadets. What do you attribute your ability to really manage time and prioritize, and be able to succeed in so many different areas when I think for all the GBK fans out there that are big Army football fans, we know how hard it is to be successful as an Army football player and just graduate from West Point, let alone do it at your level.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty fortunate. I had a pretty good high school experience in terms of the preparation that I was getting, and that helped me go to college and have some pretty fundamental skills in place. But for me, a lot of it came down to things that aren't really necessarily, in my mind, related to um, your capabilities when you walk in the classroom. And it all comes back to the same things we talk about on the field. What's your ability to communicate? When can you leverage your attitude, your level of awareness, how and where you participate, and make decisions about where you're going to take risk and things like that. So it's the same things that we do when we practice on the football field and when we develop schemes. But I think I did put a good amount of energy into working with my instructors who here have an opportunity to come back and teach. I know how much people are willing to invest and that's why I tell the current cadets and cadet athletes, like if you go to people are, the support network is there to help you. And I think I just wasn't ashamed to say I need help, or I could use this or use that. And um, I use the Center for Enhanced Performance a ton. So we have mental skills coaches there who taught me all sorts of life skills that I continue to use. So when it comes to prioritization, I think that's a factor, but it's how you're dealing with everyone. It's the sort of ability to self-assess and self-regulate, and then to leverage all of the great resources and teammates and mentors and everyone else that exists here at West Point to make you successful in all sorts of ways.
Thanks, Andrew. Good stuff with the shout out to the Center for Enhanced Performance. My when I was a cadet, my mentor, Lieutenant Colonel retired Billy Francis, was one of the key guys down there at the Center for Enhanced Performance. Former Army wrestler, absolute superstar. So he always helped me out a lot as well, and a lot of my classmates. So now that you're a professor and you're back there on post, what's it like being around West Point and Army football after all the time you spent away from the academy and the post, and kind of talk about what you, before we got on the air, right when we got on the air, you mentioned about being around Coach Monken and the team. What have you seen the last couple of years since you've been up there, and kind of what's your general overall feeling or vibe around the program right now?
Yeah, I think when I compare and contrast them, I think the things that still stick out are the things like the culture, the connection that exists through the years between how people on the team treat each other, how they approach. It's very much like there's a full-on level of expectation that you're bringing everything you can to make everyone on the team successful, which is awesome. I think there's been some more programmatic changes that have helped um, generate a lot of success. When I look at some of our coaching staff and the support systems that were in place, we do things now, I would say, a little bit different than we did then. And I think most of it is for positive. Like I think we've improved nutrition. We've improved some of the sports science aspect of the training and the physical training, and tried to also incorporate what, honestly, from my perspective, in includes a good amount of sacrifice on the part of the cadet athletes with doing a lot more summer school, but which allows them to then be a little bit less busy with their academic loads during the season. So different initiatives like that, that when they're appropriate for cadet athletes are taken, and it really helps out with their overall ability to compete and be successful, which has been awesome to see. But you also, I think, in the Army, I would say, and probably generally in society, there's always this aspect of the next generation. What are they like? Or, they're soft, or and for me, it's been really awesome to see, like, they're not soft. They're doing things harder, faster, stronger,
Right.
than we were ever capable of doing. Like, I wouldn't even make the team today. But they might be different in different ways, or different in a number of ways than how we would approach things. But if you look at the overall level of capability and talent and work ethic, it's pretty inspiring to see. So that's been awesome, not only in the classroom, but also being around the program.
Absolutely. I know, one of Coach Monken's mantras is last to the hard. And I think that definitely applies to this generation of Army football players for sure. So pretty cool. So, what, Andrew, did you take away from your time as an Army football player that maybe helped you succeed in your Army career so far?
Yeah, and I hear this from Coach Monken and the staff, but it is an incredible leadership laboratory, having a chance to get out there on the field with a group of 11 people on every single play, where everyone has to rely on everyone else to do what they're doing to the best of their ability to win in a competition as tight and as like ball can bounce either way as some of these games for Army football that exist. Sometimes I think the ball can bounce too close, if we look at how close these Navy games have been the last 2 seasons.
Right.
But it's a level of toughness, it's a level of preparation, it's about how you work with people, how you communicate, and how you're all working towards the same goal, even though you all aren't the same and you're not necessarily going to be treated the same. And then when you get to go out in the Army, it's really like you're the head coach now, and you have all this capability. Especially being in the infantry, we tend to get a lot of people that bring different skill sets, that we have to figure out how to make the whole scheme work, and how to get everyone on the same page and moving towards a common objective. And that's basically what football is when you think about all the 11 players on the field. So that part, but getting a chance to be the coach when I had such a great experience and was impacted so much by some great coaches I've had throughout my time as a football player, I'll definitely stay with it. And then how to build and maintain the culture of what is Army football, what are the positive aspects there that we can shape, even though the Army isn't a brotherhood, it's a brotherhood and a sisterhood, right? But there's still how you incorporate everyone, include everybody, get them involved, and get them fired up about who you are and your organization, I think is really powerful.
Very cool. Yeah, it's funny you talked about how close the Army Navy games have been, which, don't get me wrong, beats getting blown out by a million. But my favorite two things from last year, when it's 17-3, and I thought Army's gonna, put them away. In fact, I'm texting Charles going, Dagger, I'll go do the press conference, because my thing was I was going to do the post game presser if they won. I wasn't going to do it if they lost. So I said, Dagger, I'll go do the presser. And then Navy's coming back, and I'm like, oh no. So we get in there. The first thing Coach Monken says is, in the beginning of the press conference, he goes, why does it always have to be like this? And then my other favorite was, I just interviewed Coach Woody last week and was talking about the game, and he goes, oh yeah, we had no doubt we were going to stop them. I'm like, well, that's good, because the other 70,000 people in the stadium, as long as you knew, that's all that matters. So, last question for you, Andrew, and a little bit of a touchy subject. So, especially as an employee of the academy right now in the Army, completely understand if you want to take the fifth on this. It doesn't really super apply to West Point right now, although it could in the future, but it has impacted West Point and Army football. Clearly, the great coach Nick Saban just retired from the most successful career in the history of college football, arguably, and wasn't shy about some of his reasons for retiring were the changes in the college football landscape in terms of NIL and the transfer portal and what that's done to the opportunity to develop players and everything. As a former college football player, what is your take on that current landscape? And, if you have any commentary around how it may be negatively impacting West Point or potentially even positively impacting West Point in some ways. Because I kind of see both sides of the coin, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's a great question. I will answer it more as like not an employee of West Point, but just as we'll say it, a current fan of college athletics,
Fair. Yep.
football in particular. I think there's um, some things that could negatively impact West Point, right? When you think about the transfer portal for us, everyone's coming in as a freshman, and so if you're a grad student, like you see a lot of players right now who are based on COVID and the super seniors and everything that's gone on there, it's not like they're coming to West Point because they don't even
right. They're not going to start as plebes when they're 25.
That's right. So in some ways it if somebody wants to leave, of course, before they're an affirmed cadet, then they can use the portal to leave. So you would think that's negative, but I actually think there's a lot of opportunities, and these are some of the things I hear our coaches talk about too. Is we're talking about culture, we're talking about generational, all those things that matter when you're in the fourth quarter of those close games, like how good are the bonds among the players on your team. And if your team is reloaded every single year out of the transfer portal, where you have guys coming in from 15 different schools and some of them played against each other last year and they're just in it for whatever their best deal is they're going to get on NIL, that's a pretty tough place to build a team in the sense of how we think about it. So I think that offers us some pretty strong opportunity. And I don't know that when we look at who we're recruiting and who we target in terms of talent. Like if you're Bryce Young and you're going to get $1 million NIL, you're probably not on our list anyway. but, but we pay all of our cadet athletes,
Right.
Everybody is getting a shot at a better future when they come here
Yep.
based on opportunities that this place provides. So I think as the landscape becomes a little more chaotic, people are going to start to realize the near and long-term ramifications for their decision. And is it worth $3,000 a year to play at school X or come here where they get greater than that in the equivalent in terms of pay and benefits and everything like that, but they also get the lifetime thing. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. I am nervous about the pace of change. It seems like and again, not an employee of West Point, but it seems like the NCAA from holding back the dam and the tidewaters to now somewhat accelerating it by the sort of the steps that are being taken and are being discussed as future steps. And it's change is happening faster than people can even assess the change, it appears. So we'll see it's difficult to say right now what the second and third order effects are going to be for college athletics, but it is certainly concerning.
Yeah, that's a great viewpoint, Andrew, and I appreciate your honesty and candor on that answer. And I think if we had more time, I'd love to talk to you more about that, just because I think with your background specifically as a former college football player, as somebody who's got, you talked about the pace of change, as somebody who's got an MBA and a master's degree in mechanical engineering, talk about change management and all those kinds of factors that go into businesses. And really, the NCAA has become a business, especially when it comes to college football. I think there's a lot of interesting roads you can go down, but I certainly appreciate your perspective and agree with pretty much everything you said there. So good stuff. I think one of the points you bring up that's a key is, there's something to be said for player development and culture development. And it's hard to do that when a guy's got a new quarterback coach every year. So, and that's one area where maybe we see where Army has kids in the system for 4 years. By the time they're firsties, they're a lot more developed than some of the firsties or seniors they're playing against who have transferred 3 or 4 times. So
That's right. Yeah.
yeah. Well, hey, Army fans, Andrew, this has been great. Thank you very much for your time. I know you're extremely busy. We appreciate you even rescheduling with us. So thank you very much for accommodating our schedule. Really appreciate it. Great Army career at West Point and in the regular Army. Keep doing the great things you're doing out there. Everybody appreciates it. Hope to see you at a couple Army games this year. And Army fans, this has been Joe Iacono with GoBlackKnights.com, along with former Army linebacker Andrew Rodriguez, saying, "Go Army, beat Navy."